Hello, everyone. This is Alex, president of DSC UCF. I'm ready to kick off today's React session. Hopefully you guys are too. I just realized I had all my windows organized incorrectly, so just give me 1 second and we'll go ahead and get this presentation rolling. Perfecto. All right, guys, I'll go ahead and share my screen with the presentation. And then please, if you can see the presentation, let me know in the chat. 1 second. Here we go. Hopefully you guys can see the presentation. Okay, so formally, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here to kick off our second session of building a full stack web app. Today, we begin session 2, which is front-end design with JavaScript and React. By the end of the session, you'll be able to leverage JS and React to add functionality to your app. Before we get started with our content, let us please introduce our speakers for today's session. Give me 1 second to bring them on stage. So first of all, who am I? I'm Alex. I'm the president of DSA UCF, like I previously said. I'm pumped to be here with all of you guys today. And let me have TJ introduce himself.
Hello, guys. I'm a tech lead at DSC, Developer Student Club at Google, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm usually into machine learning and artificial intelligence, but I have a little experience with React, so I wanted to jump in and super psyched to be here.
And hello again, everyone. My name is Antoine. From previous session, welcome back to any new attendees. Welcome. Hopefully you enjoy what we worked hard to help and just bridge the gap between theory and practical.
All right, guys. I'm going to send you guys backstage, and I'll have you back in just a sec. Okay, so for those of you who are new to this session or you're new to developer student clubs overall, let me give you a quick recap of what developer student clubs is. So developer student clubs, or DSCs, are student-run communities that are supported and recognized by Google developers that empower students through programs like these here on the slide, which is developer student clubs like ourselves, GDGs, GDEs, or Google Developer Experts, and Women Tech Makers. The objective for DSCs is to help students bridge the gap between theory and practice. But what does that mean? In our classes, we learn a lot about theory or concepts, but we oftentimes don't apply these to real-world problems. And that's what we are here for. Through your participation in DSC events, you'll learn about cutting-edge technologies and platforms that you can use in real-world applications. We want to help you through peer-to-peer learning because remember, it's a student-run community, and we want to help you. And if you need to reach out and ask us any questions, please do. If you get stuck, we're here to help. And this way, through a peer-to-peer learning, we meet new people, build projects together, and that's our goal as a DSC. We hope that you learn and enjoy today's event. So quick, today's schedule. We already met today's speakers, and I gave you a quick recap of what DSCs are. Next, I'm going to go over what we're building during today's series, and then we're going to introduce JavaScript and React, and then we're going to quickly show you guys how to set up the environment, and then dive into the code. Quickly, I do want to mention, for those who are watching right now, if you are not set up for React, your development studio is not set up, please go ahead and maybe if you could open a video in another tab. You can keep the sound off, but at least you can see. I put a link in the chat. It is bit.ly/React setup. If you could go ahead and check that out, that'd be probably super helpful to get you started. So without further ado, let me talk about our approach for today's session. So for those of you who are watching who attended our HTML and CSS session, we heard your feedback The general consensus was we went too fast, introducing too many technologies, and didn't put enough emphasis on the fundamentals of the technologies we were using. So today we're going to take a slightly different approach. We're not going to present the fundamentals of JS because we could easily spend 2 hours on JavaScript. So rather, we're going to show you what JavaScript does and its purpose, but the structure and the syntax may come very familiar to you through reading the documentation. So we're going to introduce it, but we're really going to be mainly focusing on React during this event. So if you've never used JS, JavaScript, and you want to learn a little bit more about it, we have the resources doc that we've created, which is right here. If you go to dsc.com/e/resources, you can check out our resource doc, which has resources for all of our sessions, including today. So what are we going to build throughout this series? Let's take a quick look at the 2021 Solution Challenge first. The 2021 Solution Challenge mission is to create a solution for one of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals using at least one Google technology. In our project, we've decided to develop a very easy, basic solution that aims at solving issues around SDG Goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation. The web app we'll be developing by the end of the series is called Clean Water, which helps users create events for beach cleanups around Florida. Users will be able to RSVP, create new event listings, add event details, log in and out, and create an account, as well as reset their password. We admit that this is not really in any way unique, as the functionality already exists in Facebook groups, Meetup, and other platforms. So this project might not have a great chance at winning the Solution Challenge, but it's a great example project for us to create those web apps for the first time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce JavaScript. I'm going to go ahead and invite TJ to the stage to talk a little bit about JavaScript, and then we'll go ahead and move forward. So TJ, welcome back to the stage. I'm going to go ahead and pass this slide off to you, and you can go ahead and take it away.
Hello, guys. How are you all doing today? So before we get started on answering this question, what is JavaScript? I've seen many students ask me hey, we've done some coding in HTML and we did some styling in CSS. We don't really know why we have to learn JavaScript. And then I'm like, if you think about your body, HTML is like a skeleton, right? That's why it's called the markup language. It gives you the structure on how your web page or your static HTML page should look like. And the CSS kind of gives you the overall look and the styling and the layout, but the functionality, like closing eyes, like eating food, like walking, dancing, everything, all the functionality is done by JavaScript. That's why it is a functional programming language. Yeah, next slide. Oh, here's a little bit joke that Maria came up with. And I quickly want to mention, if you guys are new to HTML and CSS, like never touched HTML and CSS, maybe this is a little advanced topic for you. So if Alex, if you can post a link in the comments where they can check out Maria's HTML and CSS event, it will be a great start for people who have never touched HTML and CSS. This is a joke that Maria came up with. Java, many students get confused with Java and JavaScript. They think JavaScript is like on top of Java, or like maybe a slightly different version of Java, but it's not. Like Java and JavaScript have nothing in common. They're two different programming languages. One is used to maybe make Android apps and stuff like that, and the other one is used for web development, for mobile development. Even JavaScript today is used for machine learning and artificial intelligence as well. Next slide. What else is JavaScript used for? Like I briefly said, it's used for mobile apps, web apps, machine learning and artificial intelligence, server-side scripting, making APIs, post requests, get requests. It can do a lot of things. I feel like it's like Python for web and mobile development. Like they have so many frameworks like React, Angular, Vue that you can use and get started quickly and develop your own prototypes. Next slide. This is a great spot to reference. So JavaScript is a huge, not a huge, it's a very big programming language, right? Like you cannot learn everything that is in there. If you get stuck, like how to initiate an array, or like what is the length of this array, or like questions like that, sometimes you forget when you don't touch JavaScript, or like if you never programmed in JavaScript. W3 Schools gives you a great resource to reference different kinds of like how to do a for loop, while loop, all that syntactic references can be found in W3 Schools. Next slide. Okay, data types. I'm not gonna bore you guys a lot. So JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. If you have ever programmed with Python, you probably know what I'm talking about. But if you never touched Python, what dynamically typed language means is you don't have to tell what type of variable it's going to be beforehand. So you don't have to say, hey, I'm going to read in a string, or I'm going to have an array of integers. If some of you have experience with C or Java or other programming languages which are strongly typed, you have to specify what are you going to read in, or what are you going to write. But JavaScript is dynamically typed. And for some people, they like strongly typed languages, so that's why we have TypeScript. It's JavaScript but with types. And the three data types that we have to look in is var, which means variable, let, and const. Const means constant. Let and var kind of can be used interchangeably. So what var and let does, so when you initiate a constant object, it can never be changed, right? If I say const and then I give it a variable name and I initiate it, I can never change it again. Once the object is initiated, it has to be the same. But for variable and let, you can change the object. And some of the basic data types that you can read is number, string, boolean, an object, a custom object, and an array. Please let me know, guys, if I'm going too fast or too slow. Like it would be great. Like if I'm going too fast, and if you guys let me know, like if I have to go back a slide, or if I have to explain something a little more. But I think that's it for data types. Next slide. Antoine, you can take over.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk about more about how does JavaScript actually interacts with HTML. So with HTML, our stuff was very static. There was no moving parts or anything responsive about it. So like how TJ mentioned that JavaScript is the nervous system of the HTML. So we have certain events that trigger the JavaScript. You can also actually use JavaScript to actually add components, like adding a paragraph or so to the actual HTML to make it more responsive, instead of having to just have it with the same text all the time. Some of the events that JavaScript works with when it comes to HTML is onChange and so on. So for example, when it comes to the HTML and how it works with it, we have the event called onClick. Any of the actual HTML tags can actually have these kind of events. And what it is, you're passing the JavaScript. So for here is actually doing the JavaScript inline, where it is calling the document, which is the actual HTML page. From there, getting the ID called demo, and then just putting it in the inner HTML, the new date. So if, in this example, if we were to click the button right here in the paragraph tag, the date, the current date will be displayed there. So that is how JavaScript really works with everything. Okay, so Alex, it seems like my laptop's having some technical difficulties. I guess just remove my screen. And whenever you're ready, just go to the next slide. Oh, it seems like we actually added a duplicate, I believe. All right. So when it comes to JavaScript, like I mentioned, it just adds functionality to it. So how does React tie to all of this? So React is actually a JavaScript framework, and what a framework is pretty much a bunch of libraries that are together that tackle a particular task. And for React, it is to make it more usable and portable. React is actually an open source front end library and is actually developed by Facebook. So when it comes to using React, you always know that you always have a supporting community since it's Facebook. And it's with open source, you always can ask questions easily to get help. Next slide. So how does it relate to React versus HTML? So for students that were involved in the last sessions, if you were to finish building everything from HTML, from the design that we gave, you will have noticed that we will kind of have to copy and paste the header and the footer to all our pages. And that kind of makes it a little tedious in managing our documents. So with React, we kind of make everything into components and reuse them. So instead of us having to, say, write out or copy 10 lines or more just for say the navigation, we have all the functionality in one component, and we can always go back to that one part of the file and make our modifications there instead of having to go through every single page and modifying it and making sure everything is consistent upon all our HTML pages. Additionally, when it comes to React versus HTML, it has actually a faster rendering and is actually more SEO friendly. SEO friendly, making it that since it's only one index.html, we're actually able to add more stuff to it to make it easily discovered on the internet. So for those who don't know what SEO means, it's called search engine optimization. And that is just how we're able to be discovered on the internet. Because when it comes to doing HTML, you will actually have to do SEO for every single page. And like we mentioned, React is all about reusability and portability. So this actually helps with that. So this is just a slight example of how we would have to create, say, a container that's called div and having 2 paragraphs, right? That's how it would appear. And this is how we would do it in JavaScript, just plain JavaScript. And for something this small, is not that hard to read, it's easy to understand, and so on. However, excuse me, when you get to more complicated solutions or complicated components, it can actually expand very quickly. And on the next slide, I'll show you that. So this is actually from my own website where I was making a table row with its own unordered list and another unordered list inside it. And as you can see, this is a lot. This was very hard to read. Even for me today, and I'm the one who developed this, it was actually very hard to read. So with React, this helps us eliminate this kind of code where it's extremely difficult to read, and that if I were to pass this on to someone else, it'll be hard for them to read. Next slide. Let's see. Okay, so this is actually a little better. So going back to our intro to programming, we pretty much are passing. So yeah, going back to our intro to programming, we usually pass functions a bunch of variables. However, this time we're actually passing to our variable put in table properties of the components we want to create. Now, instead of how before I had to do all these create React, it made it very hard to read. Now I'm actually editing the HTML itself. Now I can actually see what am I working with without having to do create React, append inner HTML. I can actually see it myself. So with React, I'm building my own component. I'm building my own table row with all the stuff I like for it to have. And I have the properties, as you can see. I have my 4 variables to store them. And then from there, I'm able to just use them easily. And if there's ever an issue, I can always look at it and do it myself. And from the old slide, Alex, if you don't mind going back one slide. Here is where I'm doing like the HTML when it comes to the for loop. And yeah, that one's simple, but like again, I have to remember all this of how it is going to display without visually seeing it while I'm coding. Yes, I know I can open up a live server and have that presented on our screen, but for making it easy, to make it a lot easier for us, that's why React is like how it is. Go back to the slide, please. And with this, I'm actually seeing what's going to be printed out without having to worry about, oh, if this is formatted correctly or so on. Next slide.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to quickly take over before we dive into VS Code. First, let me backpedal a little bit, and Antoine, I'll send you backstage. I will see you back in a second. So for those who did not see the video that I posted, first, I'm going to quickly bring it back up on the banner real quick. If you go to this link, which is bit.ly/react setup, you can see the video that TJ so kindly recorded on how to get set up with React. And it really just involves a couple things. You got to install Visual Studio Code, which is what we're using. You can use something else, but that's just what we're using for this session. Additionally, you need to install Node.js, which includes NPM, or the Node Package Manager. That is what you're going to use to create your React project. So I'm going to quickly show you what that looks like. I'm not going to go through the installation process because it is pretty self-explanatory and you should not have any issues regardless of what operating system you are using. So if you give me 1 second, I'll show you. All right, so you should see my virtual machine that I ran up here with my beautiful Corvette background that I have. Now, like I said, you're going to need VS Code. So if you just look up Visual Studio Code and go to the website. Oh, I don't even have my screen shared. Whoopsies. Sorry about that. You didn't even get to see my Corvette. It's sad. Hang on. Now you should see my screen, and you can see my Corvette now. It's beautiful. And now you can see VS Code. So if you look up Visual Studio Code, you can download it regardless of if you're on Mac OS, Windows, or Linux. Also, yes, if you have a Mac with a new M1, you can download Visual Studio Code. So download that, go through the installation process. Additionally, you need Node.js, like I mentioned. So I went ahead and went with the current. You can download that, go through the installation process. And then once we dive into Visual Studio Code with TJ and Antoine, they're going to show you how on the command line, you can see if you have Node successfully installed and what version of Node and NPM you have installed. Quickly, again, before we actually dive into the code, I want to mention 2 things. One, we tried to put all of our resources onto this resource doc, which again is right here. That is our resource doc. Go to DSC. Oh, that's not even the right link. I totally apologize. I'm going to put that in the comments, actually. It is dscucf.com/e/resources. You go to that link right there. It'll take you to our Google Doc, which is a link of all the resources for a bunch of our sessions. Most of the resources for today is going to be on page 2. And there you can see resources for JavaScript, video tutorials, documentation, all of that, as well as a link to our GitHub if you want to download our source code. If you go to GitHub and then check out our session 2 branch, you can download the code for today's event. But I think that's pretty much it from my side. So I'm going to quickly get rid of my screen and invite TJ and Antoine back to the stage so we can go ahead and dive into Visual Studio Code and actually get our hands dirty with some JavaScript and React. So let me go ahead and do that now. All right, gents, welcome back to the stage. Antoine, are you going to be sharing your screen, or are we still having some issues?
I'll share my screen, and Alex, you have Maria on here.
Perfect. Let me know once you're ready, and I can go ahead and put your screen onto the share.
Yes, sir. All right, Alex, let me know. Let me know if it's up there. Perfect.
All right, guys, take it away.
All right, let me actually make the screen a little smaller for that. All right. Let's see. TJ, you want to go? Sorry about this, guys. TJ, you want to go first and at least explain the, I guess, setting up everything?
Oh yeah, I can do that. So in React development, the way we usually start a React project is React gives you this starter pack called Create React App. So what you do is npx create React. Oh, wait. Sorry. My bad. Let me back up a little bit. Before we actually do that, we need to have the node installed, right? So when I hit node-v, you can see me and Antoine are working with version 12.18.4. This might be different in your computer. I think as long as you're about version 10, you should be fine. So make sure that node is installed before you run this command. And so what I'm going to do is npx create React app. And then once you give that command to npx, the next thing you want to name your project. Antoine, what do you want to name this project?
Let's give it about page.
About page. That sounds great. And I'm going to do this in camel case.
Teacher, remember, it doesn't allow for cap.
Oh, well,
capitalized letters. All good.
Ta-da.
And we get that moment.
So now, yeah, we have to give this a moment. While this is doing this, I'm gonna quickly explain what I'm trying to achieve doing this, right? So in order to work with React, you need a lot of boilerplate. So what do I mean by boilerplate? You need a package.json file, which holds all your dependencies, like different kinds of packages that you install. You need a package log JSON so that those versions can be locked. And you need a node modulus, which is gonna, what does node modulus do, Antoine, again? It kind of like holds on to all those built packages, I think, something like that. And it creates a source directory where that's where all our code is gonna be in. And yeah, that's all the starter pack that we're gonna get by doing this create React app. If we had to do all this by ourselves, we might screw some things up, or it just takes a lot of time. You know, if it takes a lot of time, it might even take a lot of time to debug. The point that I'm trying to drive home here is it's mundane and boring, and React does it for us. So now we are all set up. You can see the package.json came up with some dependencies and some other stuff like start scripts, build scripts, and test scripts. And this is our source directory. And the index.js is where our app is going to be actually rendered. So what do I mean by render? So like this is the entry point for our file. And this app component is being exported from app.js and being displayed at index.js. I think it will be really easy to just show this to you. I'm going to run, Antoine, I'm going to run npm start. Oh, wait, This is.
You got to change directories into.
Oh, yes. Okay, there I am. npm start.
Let me reshare my screen since I don't think we'll be able to see it. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yes. Cool.
All right, let me know if you guys are able to see it.
Can everyone see the big blue spinning icon of React?
All right.
Yeah, I think everyone can see it. So this is the boilerplate that we came up with, and if you click Learn React, oh, Antoine, I think you should click Learn React.
I should have opened it too. I'm so
It
sorry,
should-
everyone. No, because I shared it incorrectly. So sorry.
Yeah, you need to change directory. Yeah, change directory to the about page.
Yeah, so that's actually
yeah.
a good question to start off on, because just a second ago we actually did run into that issue. So Antoine, if you could bring VS Code back up and then show why we were having that issue when we tried to do React to start it. So then that would help figure out why we can't start it.
Repeat that one more time, Alex. I was trying to show the screen again.
Yeah,
to
so
show
when
properly.
TJ first did try to start the app, it didn't work. And the reason was because we were in the wrong directory. So maybe we could quickly show in VS Code how to check if you're in the right directory,
Yeah.
and then how to change real quickly. And then that would help everyone who's watching make sure that they're in the right directory before they type that command.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
to address the problem that Jishuan Biju, sorry if I got your name wrong. Yeah, so you need to change your directory where you can actually see package.json. That's where your scripts live, and that's the one that can actually run the web app. So please let me know if you got that figured out.
All right. Well, TJ, let me actually show them.
Yeah.
So if you only have one terminal, for example, if this was only my one terminal, I started the project. So if I were to do Control C, interesting. I don't know why it's not letting me. Weird. Well, Control C will be the one to stop the process. And to make sure you know where you are, I'm gonna show you a few command lines that are Linux based. That's why I'm using PowerShell, because PowerShell is able to use Linux command line versus the command prompt on Windows. So first thing is what you call print working directory. And that will just show you your current path. It just shows you where you are. And from right there, I know that I'm in the React event folder. And if I were to do ls, which is list, it will tell me what is currently in the folder I am in. So when I do ls, you can see that it has about, well, because I guess my screen size, it has a folder called about page. All right, perfect. So as you can see, I'm doing create event, but I'm not in the about page, because the about page is actually the folder, is where React actually exists. And when I'm doing the npm start is going to look into the package .json and looking at the script. So npm start, it will literally look at the scripts, look for the start, and then run this. So that is when we have to do npm. Actually, wait, I just realized. I'm so sorry, everyone. TJ, you did npx, correct?
Oh no, I did npm.
No, but you did like this, right?
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay,
npx.
so that's the issue. Everyone, please do this, because when you do npx, it doesn't download the script. So I think his thing is trying to run the script without having it installed.
Okay.
So we're going to actually do this, and we're going to give it well, let me see if this works. There you go. So we're going to do npm i-g. For those who are having the same issues, please do this so that when we do npm start, it will know where to reference the React script. The -G means for global. Because there's certain stuff like how create React app is more of a command line tool, and we're installing it into the global folder of Node.js. I'm gonna give everyone a minute with that. Correct. That is to install it globally.
Okay. I hope that solved the problem.
Hopefully that does.
If not, please let us know in the chat and we'll see what we can do. You can also go to our event page, right, Alex? And we will help you troubleshoot your problem.
Yeah, okay, thanks for bringing that up. So just so you know, if you have some issues with your React app throughout this event or after the event and you want to get some help with it, feel free to join our Discord just by going to our website, dseucf.com, click Discord to join our server. And then we do have a channel called Event Chat. And if you jump in there, we'll be happy to answer any questions during or after this event. We'd be happy to assist.
So, Tajay, when it comes, wait, do you need all the files created? The files will be created once you run the create React app script. That will do it for you. So you don't have to manually create every single one. Did you if you end up doing like the way TJ presented, like so, test, for example. Why is my screen? Okay, better. Like so, this will actually say, hey, I want you to get this thing from your server, and then I want you to run this script. The npx is literally just doing that. So you're pretty much, I'm running the script without actually downloading the Create React app library. And then from there, Create React library will then make create a React app with a folder name test. So from our old one, how we had an about page, it created it right here for you.
To answer the question that Tajay Thompson came up with, yes, you do need index.js. That's the entry point for our app. That's where our app is going to be rendered. So when the user first comes to your web app or website or anywhere, index.js is going to be rendered on the browser page, and that's how they get into the index page, and the index page brings the app from the app.js, and the app.css is the styling that is being applied on app.js. If you look closely, index.js also has an index.css, which applies styling for index.js. So yes, you do need most of these files. Maybe you don't need the logo.svg. You might put your own logo in there, but all these files that have been created by the startup pack are important to build your web app or website.
Perfect. That was a great description, TJ. So we can go ahead and we already created our React app. Now let's go ahead and start talking about where do we start? Where do we start with creating the React app and kind of refactoring the HTML code that we worked on in last session into React? What does that process look like? And I think another good thing for TJ and Antoine to talk about next is JSX and how JSX plays a role here with React and what exactly it is.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Alex. So what JSX is a way to use HTML in JavaScript. So normally this right here is not normal HTML technically. It is if we're doing it in a .html, but because we're using the JSX that is part of React that allows us to use HTML elements, that is why we're able to do this. Okay, so let me actually show you one thing beforehand. This is the original part that's actually grabbing the document, like how I showed you in the example of how JavaScript interacts with the HTML. This is how it is how React is messing around with the index.html. Is grabbing the element on the HTML page and then just putting in this, which is our React app. And as we can see, this is what you called your app component. It's similar to us doing a div or even a header.
Antoine, I have a quick question. Is div like a component in the HTML world?
Technically, yes. Div is just a component to just generalize and build a container.
Mm-hmm.
So just like how div is in the HTML world a container, our apps instance, or as we call it now, components, are now our new containers of multiple features. So currently, if we were to look at our HTML page, nothing is going on, just basic stuff. Our body that displays certain information has one div and a no script that tells you that you disable JavaScript on your web page. So on this page is where it's actually putting all our React app, the app right here, into this part. It's putting all our stuff here for us. That is how it works with it. So this is always going to be the first part. This is your entry gate into the React world. The React DOM, the DOM is the document object model. That is technically the actual object that actually displays this stuff on our webpage. This is how it messes with it. This is how we are able to make stuff dynamic by rendering new stuff to the document itself, to the actual HTML page, while someone is using it on their browser.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And here is just us importing the actual object itself. Now, create React app is a template. So there is a few stuff that are just by default. For example, this right here, which is a bunch of information when it comes to just reporting vitals and information. That's more for testing. Even here to set up the testing environment, which is just this is on library. So in reality, we actually don't need this right now. And ignore this. So we're just going to do a little cleanup. For now, I'm just going to leave this. This is just the spinning logo we saw. This is the image, PNG. We don't need that. And we do not need that. And the fave icon. We're just going to leave it there because instead of having that gray icon. All right. And I believe that should be all the cleanup. So first things first is to explain more about React and how it is more about making it everything compact. So example, as you can see, this function is really building the component called app. This is where so how React does stuff, there is technically two types of components. We have a class component and a function component. The only difference between those two is that a class component has state. And what that means by state is the state of the object. And that could be anything such as something I'm displaying, a property, for example. You say I'm displaying the value 1, right? And I have a click and I have a plus sign. If I were to click that plus sign, my state will get edited. That plus sign will have an event say to increase the value to 2. And by so, that state will then re-render everything. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the scope of this project, since our next session, we'll be teaching more about APIs. So we're just going to teach you just how to use React and how to make stuff in it to make it reusable. To add more about fetching stuff in the back end and making stuff re-render, we will show you how to do that on the next session. So let's actually start by looking back to our old project. Alex, if you don't mind showing the Figma of what we're going to be building today.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Give me 1 second to pull that up.
While Alex is pulling that up, I just want to ask you a quick question, Antoine. So when we use functional component, right? Like, or I guess like everyone will see, like during the session, as the session goes on, everyone will see that class-based should extend the component, while the function-based doesn't have to. Do you know why is that, Antoine? Because I really don't know.
So React has a way of making these stuff do it by default. So with React, using the so-called class component, when that'll be going more towards object-oriented programming, which some people may not know. But to sum it up, it's pretty much making real-world objects with certain properties. So because it's a class component, and we're using the keyword class to make it, we have to extend the component part for the class to then inherit the properties for it to be a class component. While functions, they're more just, hey, give me X and I produce you Y.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
All right, everyone. So this is what we are making. From those who are from the first session, if you were to finish this, you would notice that we will always have to copy and paste both the navbar and the and the footer. So this time we only have to do it in one place and just call it from one area, and that's it. And we never have to worry about all the pages being similar, since all of them just render from one place instead of us having to copy the same navbar 10 times and worrying to managing all those 10 navbars. So now is where we're going to actually start by building our navbar. So this is what they had originally for the starting point of the app component. So I'm actually just going to delete this for now. Leave that for there. And how I like to kind of structure my stuff in React is thinking about this. So I like to do folder, and then I like to have the folder to be the component itself. In this case, we're making the navbar. And then from there, any resource I need that needs to be for the navbar, I can put all the resource in there. That's how I like to personally do it. You can do it differently. You can have everything to be more global. It's up to you to how you want to manage everything.
I usually put my components inside a components directory so like I can export it to different projects. Do you think that's a good practice?
That's actually a great practice and actually something I should probably do. So let's do that. Let's make a folder. And as you can see, my Visual Studio makes a special icon noticing it as a component folder. So first component. And because I don't have anything in it in the navbar, it does that, just consolidates it. And then we're going to do index.js. And just to show you more of the folder structure, we're going to make the next folder ahead of time and call it footer. Oh, no. Yes. Sorry, everyone. Let's move it. There you go. So now it's like so. So one key note to mention that I'll show everyone is that, as you can see, I'm doing index, but for this one, for example, it has as app, right? As the app.js. One key thing to mention is that with that, you explicitly have to mention the direct, like at least the part of the name of the file. But for me, since I did the way I'm doing it, I can actually just do it like this. And do slash app slash, no, not slash components slash navbar without actually specifying index.js. And the reason is that is because how React or just JavaScript in general loads stuff from a folder, it automatically looks for index. That is why when it comes to building our first web page, if we did index, we didn't have to worry about it because the program always knows that index is always like that key reserved word to know, hey, this is a starting point. So that's one key note to mention. All right, perfect. Next, so with Navbar as of right now, it doesn't have any particular states. It's just there to present stuff and to show everything. And with that, we don't need to make it as a class. So that is how I think of it. If I want something to have a class and state to manage itself, then I'll make it into a class. If I don't, and it just say it's a child component, something nested inside someone else's, and that the upper one, also known as the parent, is controlling the lower one, that is when I would make something into a function. So you gotta look at how you are making your components. But since this one doesn't have any, doesn't need anyone to manage, doesn't need to manage anyone, or it's not being managed, you can just make it into a function. The first thing, import React from React. And this is just to make sure that it's telling the JavaScript part saying, hey, we're going to use JSX. So it doesn't matter if it's a function component or class component, you always need to do import React.
To answer the question in the chat, you don't necessarily need index.js for every component. You can name it whatever you want. So the reason why we do index.js is so that when we import navbar, it automatically looks for index.js. So we don't have to do navbar / nav.js. We just say, hey, go get me the navbar component, and it looks for index.js by default. So once you start coding with React, you will see a lot of the things that community does, and you kind of adapt to the community. It's not like a hard rule. It's not illegal to name your files whatever you want. It's just the community does it this way, right? And we do it too. So yes, you can totally go ahead and name your navbar index.js as nav.js or whatever you want.
All right, perfect. So first things first, and is just the function name, and so on. Now, to actually give other files access to use this function, we have to do export and default. on the function name. Doing so, we can then actually use this component. Next part, for a function, automatically you always need a return. And when it comes to return, we always need to nest it our return. So before we're kind of used to just saying return this or return some variable here, right? But this time, what we're returning is the actual component we want to see on the screen. And by nesting like this, we know that it tells it that, hey, I'm returning you a JSX component. I'm returning you JSX HTML in a way. And like so, we're able to return something. Let's try.
So in my understanding, when we nest up a lot of HTML components, will that become a JSX element itself, I guess, right? The navbar itself becomes a JSX component. Am I right?
Exactly. It translates it to the HTML for the browser to understand what it is. Because the browser does not understand JSX. It knows JavaScript and it knows HTML and CSS. So that is why this converts it. Great question. So
that is pretty cool. I never knew about that.
So as we can see, we just have a simple div and it just says hello. Let's go here. First things first, import. And I'm just going to call it navbar to be the variable from. So we know that it is in the current directory, in the component folder, and then we're going to get the navbar. To the previous question before, if we named it something else, I would have to do it like this: navbar one more time. Whatever the .js folder is named, file is named, I would have to do that or this to do it. But since I'm just doing index, like so, and just complaining about the naming. Oh, actually, one thing I forgot. We actually React components themselves. React components themselves actually always have to be capitalized. That's something I forgot to mention. And the reason why is that is so that they know, for us to know and for them to know which is the part to be which is the part to be our actual regular HTML, our actual component versus regular HTML components. So regular HTML components are always lowercase.
So when you said them, it's the compiler you're referring to, right?
Read that one more time.
So when you said for them to know whether it's a React component or a HTML component, you meant for the compiler when it actually sees our code. So like we might have a div tag and also have a div with a capital D, which would be a custom React component.
Exactly.
So the compiler actually knows what are you doing. Okay, I can see it's green already. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So am I able to share another screen to Alex? So I can show people. Give me 1 second, everyone. Okay, see, no source files.
Oh, we are importing a report web vitals somewhere that doesn't exist.
Right here. So let's try that now. I feeling is because this is blocking it. Let me see. Or no, or that's because of the old server. Yeah, I think that's the old server. So let me actually delete that. You'll see if that can cancel it. So let me run it again. Directory. For those who are not having like my issue where the terminal is frozen, if you were to edit it and then just save the file, it should re-render for you. And then for me, okay, so now that's working. So there we are. We have the hello component. So now, so just to show you that part. So not to overwhelm everyone, but if anyone recalls the Bootstrap stuff, we usually do the Bootstrap classes to help us make stuff responsive and make everything pretty easily. And because of how React is open source, like we mentioned, we actually have a great library from the people of Bootstrap that created React Bootstrap. And how I'm just going to have you guys download that to at least have us have the components. I'm going to send it to Alex for him to post in the chat for us. And this is just very similar to what we did in our first session when it comes to doing stuff in containers, rows, and certain size. So it will actually do all that for us.
If I have to reference them, where can I find the documentation at?
The documentation I will send to Alex, and that will be at reactbootstrap.github.io. And I will send that now.
Yeah, it looks like Alex already posted it.
Thank you so much, Alex. All right, everyone. So let me start sharing, and then let's go back to here so I can show everyone how to install it. So or spelling it out, doesn't matter. Same flag. It just tells it you're installing something. So this is going to install the create React. No, the create Bootstrap.
React Bootstrap. Okay.
And then Bootstrap itself. So this is the part where it makes everything into the components, like how we're showing you how to make components, and also the Bootstrap itself. That link that we used to add in the first session to get all the resources of Bootstrap.
So we're not doing -G because we don't want it for everything, right? We just want it for this project.
Correct. I'll give that a moment. All right, and that is done. And all we have to do to use it, import. So from our first lesson, we noticed that there's always a container for everything. And now we can literally just export it. Container, and we're going to put from React Bootstrap. And just to help explain what is the difference between these two. So the main difference is that this is literally grabbing absolutely everything of the React itself. From this is what we call destructuring, whereas it kind of does it automatically and knows what I am referencing to. So in the React Bootstrap, there's a folder called container, and then from there, I'm just extracting that one particular thing. So for example, you could do it like this, and it will still work the same. The only difference is that this will only be able to hold containers only. And then with this, I'm able to just say extract multiple things and have everything on the same line. Excuse me, sorry. So there's no, it's all about preference. So that's one thing. So now we're going to put this as container. And this is how we pass in certain properties that's already defined by it. We're gonna give it a property fluid. And just so to make everything more neat, this is where how doing like this, I can actually just make a new file and just call it navbar.css to add our CSS. And then here I can now just make a class called Navbar. And then I'm gonna give it a padding of 0 and a margin of 0. Now, one key thing to mention when it comes to class, when it comes to our HTML in a way, is that since class is a reserved word in JavaScript, we cannot use class as an attribute. So we actually have to use what we call the class name. And we can actually pass it the object, or we can pass it a string. So that's one cool part. Because you can actually do some CSS as an object right here if you wanted to. But to make everything a little more organized and not to go to events, I'm going to keep it simple like so. So we're going to give it the, what's the name I gave it? Navbar like so. Now, here's also a very cool part about CSS when it comes to React. Right now, I have not imported it. We can actually go back and check the index.html, and we can see that that is currently not imported, right? And the reason is that is because I can just import it inside my React component. So let's actually close out some of this stuff here. So I can just go import dash. Let's get that a name. Navbar.css. And from there, it will have its properties for it.
Antoine, a quick question. Is it fluid or fluid S? Like, what is fluid S a valid thing?
No, it's fluid. However, as you can see, it popped up like that because I have stuff for like IntelliSense. But if I were to just pass it like this, all this would be is that passing the properties. And by doing so, I'm not really passing it any real property that container contains. So because of that, fluid won't be used. It would kind of just be null. I could just pass it whatever. And the thing is, if the container component doesn't utilize that property, it just won't do anything. There's ways to like check and make sure no one adds any additional properties, which is like with prop types. But that's another library, and that is a little outside of the scope for now.
Awesome.
If anyone has any questions on that, please feel free to message me on Discord on the DSC UCF server, and I'll be happy to help. Okay. So next part, as we know, we have the container. And just to show everyone that it works. To make sure to show everyone that it works. Interesting.
Maybe it has to be wrapped. Maybe it has to be wrapped with some kind of tag for the container to actually display it. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, no. I think is this. It would be a good idea to have it running. Have the server running. I remember we stopped the server so I can install the stuff for React app. So yes, so you refresh this and see what errors you have. So what did I do wrong? Oh, lowercase b. And find module. Just refresh that.
Yep.
And there you go. So now, same concept of doing like the class container. So
it
next,
looks more pretty.
they have some default stuff that actually adds some styling. So just like how we use the stuff from from the Bootstrap, now we're going to use all the Bootstrap components that we know about. So like all that class we did one time where we use the nav and make it like a Navbar. Instead, we are able to do that without actually having to do all that class name, because now it's just a component. So let's go here and show you back some code. Full screen. So like I mentioned, everything's always a component, and this makes it a lot easier for usability. Why is my folder not closing? Sorry, everyone. I'm having my notes. So next component we're going to get from here, we're going to call nav. We're also going to get buttons. And remember, always capital. Every class, every component in React, always a capital letter. And I believe that is it. Did I use that one? No. So I just need to use these three. All right, perfect. So next thing, to give it, is actually use the nav component. And let's see, nav back that we used. And let's do this. So nav back, this is how we can actually pass inline styling. Now, the difference is versus doing it as a normal string like we would in regular HTML, we actually pass it in as an object. So before it would have been string and do like background dash CO color like this and pass it the property. But because properties in JavaScript does not support the hyphen, we must do it like this: background color. And then from what we were using before, we're going to pass it the hash value of, which is the way, another way of doing it for colors is 145 BA. I believe I did that right. Oh, all right, everyone. You gotta wrap it around one more curly braces, make it into an object. So first curly brace to be like, hey, I am passing you something. I'm passing like a function in a way. Second curly brace is the actual object itself. And we're actually gonna do a little bit more stuff before I show the screen again. And just to test it out so I can see I'm doing it right. Perfect. Okay, so we have that as the color. Next part for the navbar that from our design, we are going to add Sorry, everyone. There we are. Next part we're going to add is our little anchor tag. And we're going to make that point back to the home page. However, this won't work, and I'll explain later why exactly. Because this, since everything's one page in React, this won't technically work. And that is when we have to use a thing called React Router, which is a way to make everything into a single page. And I will explain that in a moment. So you just actually finish building this part and go from there. Our name of our project, clean water. And then now to add the button. So this button from our first project, I'm just going to copy and paste it and just explain it a little bit. Let me make this full screen so everyone can see. TJ, is everyone able to see the full line?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
All right, perfect. It's just the same thing what we did before, where if we want to minimize it, it'll give us the burger icon to toggle the navigation when we make it into a smaller screen.
Guys, please ask questions if you're lost at anything, or if you want us to repeat ourselves or anything like that. Please feel free.
So now for the next part, for the 3 navigations in the middle, we're going to put in our div. And then before, so now, sorry everyone. So even though it doesn't seem like it, but because we have this imported, it actually imports the Bootstrap for us. So I'm actually able to just do the class name for Navbar Tugler, which is part of the Bootstrap.
So we get this Navbar toggler class name from Bootstrap itself.
Actually, sorry, wrong one. I was looking at the wrong line. That's right there. But yes, we do get it from Bootstrap itself.
Oh, it's pretty cool.
And just like what we did before, we gave it the collapse feature. This is the part to be collapsed. That's the part to be displayed if it's collapsed. This is the nav art of the collapse, and just justifying the content to be in the center. So that's from our first session. We're just now making this more for the React part of it. Now, here is the cool part. Because of how React, like I mentioned, is all about components, people can make their own libraries like this one and have everything kind of integrated to give it special design and styling. So before, we kind of had to do like nav item as a class for certain stuff.
Antoine, I'm just going to answer a quick question. So, Tajay, if you create it in the contents folder, so we created in the components folder, maybe you created it in the contents folder, that's no problem. But yes, you have to import it in the app.js so it can be rendered. And it's better if you call it index.js or any other name which is not app.js, just so that you won't get confused with your actual app and your app inside the content, if that makes sense. Go ahead, Antoine.
No problem. So before, we kind of had to do, if I recall from the old project, we had to do a div before and give it a class name called nav item, and then put our nav in here to make it like organized in a particular way. Now, components, Everything's components. So for this, as you can see, I'm doing nav.item. This is part of the object-oriented kind of concept. Because if I wanted to, I can actually just I can just import it like so. Oh, probably a capital I, because
I hope I answered your question, Tajay. Please let me know if you were able to fix your error.
and let's see. Oh, it's not exported. Never mind. I know for certain things you're able to do such a thing, but I guess not. That's a first. I guess not. I guess it has its own nested. I guess it has its own nested components in the Bootstrap container. I mean the Bootstrap nav folder. So I guess it's just like that. So I guess we have to do dot notation.
So we have to import the whole nav, even if you just use the item.
Yeah. So it seems like that is.
Yeah.
Let me just confirm on my end before we show everyone. All right, perfect. Still working. All right, so and just to speed this up, another one similar. So this time we're giving the nav item, and we're going to use the nav link class and pass it this like so. Now, give me one brief moment to verify something. Okay. This I'll come back to because that's for something else. So as we can see, that's what we have for who are you. Next, we can do, since we have 3 before, I'm just going to copy and paste that. I like to kind of leave spaces just to make it more visible and not chunky. So next is who. So first part was who we are. Get involved. Actually, I'm sorry. This actually goes here. And this part is what we do. And now, what else? We then also had, for our component, we actually have our 2 buttons we did before. And we're going to make them into a display box from Bootstrap. We're going to give it d none, d.large, and give it to be more of a block.
Antoine, I guess if anybody is wondering where are we coming up with these class names, like, because right now it looks like we know every single class name that's out there, but we don't actually know all of them. It's all documentation, guys. It should be all in the React Bootstrap documentation that we gave you. So if you guys want to use a different styling, then you refer to that documentation and play around with it. I think that's a cool way to learn how to use React and React Bootstrap together. Just play around with different styling, different classes, and run into problems. Let us know when you run into problems so we can help each other out. And as a team, we'll grow together. Right, Antoine?
Correct. And that's one thing to clarify one more time. I do not know these by heart. The thing is, we have built this already in React, and we have it on our GitHub. So right now, I'm just using what I have on the side to help demonstrate this to all. I'm just showing you by live coding it and explaining why I did X, Y, and Z. So if you ever want to get reference, you can always go back to, always go back to the GitHub and go from there. And that's when everything will be done and you'll be able to see it. Right now, we're just showing you how to use the React stuff.
Yeah, so I
And
just wanted to touch on what Antoine and TJ just said. So this is the React Bootstrap documentation. It's very extremely useful. So like again, we're not just pulling these classes just out of thin air. These are coming directly from the documentation, and that goes for everything we talked about at the last session too. These HTML and CSS styles and classes we didn't just make up. They come from places, and most of those places are documentation. So with React Bootstrap, fortunately, there is very, very detailed documentation on first how to get set up. But if you go to components, you can see everything. They pretty much translated from regular Bootstrap into React Bootstrap. You can see everything from what kind of nav bars you can make. So for those who were asking about nav bars earlier, you can see some example nav bars, and then you can literally copy and paste this code into your VS Code and then see how it works and then make the edits the way that you want. I mean, just scrolling down, looking at how they align the different navs, you can stack them vertically, have tabs, a bunch of stuff. I mean, just look at, you can do tables. I mean, everything you need is pretty much in here, and you can just copy and paste these code snippets just to get you started, and then you can edit and style them the way that you need.
another thing I forgot to mention, because like I said, we're all here to learn. We're all human. Part of the React Bootstrap, I also mentioned that I do apologize to confuse anyone. If you're not seeing it how it's supposed to render, there was a line of code that we were supposed to import, just like how I showed you guys how to import the CSS. There was one more thing to put. So I'm gonna send it to Alex for Alex to send to you. And right there is where this is actually importing all the CSS for each individual React component. And where we're going to import that is the highest level, the highest component in our, I guess, component tree. So Alex, you sent it to everyone already?
I'm going to go ahead and drop it in right now.
Thank you. And then once Alex shows you that, we're just going to import it right here on line 3. And that will literally import all of our CSS for the Bootstrap stuff. And the min, it just means that it's just minified to make the package smaller. Okay. Interesting. I'm actually going to delete this because I believe whatever styling they did in the app.js is causing the display to not be the way I wanted. Margin 0. No, so that's not that. No, so it's all part of the learning curve. Oh, it would be a good idea if I did put fluid. The fluid just means to take up the whole width of the screen. And now okay, so let's try this now. That's interesting. I'm wondering why it's not showing this stuff. Interesting. Sorry, everyone. This was me trying to do it instead of inline. So just to explain, this is just for some of the navigation styling. This is the one I told you guys to do inline, so we don't need this right now.
Wait, the exclamation important makes it more special?
Yeah, it just means to override the stuff because some stuff
collapse, right?
Yeah, the hierarchy and everything. But I don't know.
That's the part I hate with CSS.
I don't understand why. Let's see. Just close this out. We don't need that. Don't need that. Because right now it's not showing the names for some reason. And I'm trying to see what I did differently. Interesting.
So you cannot see who are we and who we are and everything?
Yeah, for some reason. So I'm trying to figure out why is it not showing. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
So you got everything wrapped in nav. Got a div for the buttons. Are the buttons being showed up?
They should be because the buttons are showing, but this part is this div is not. So I am trying to figure out. Let's see. Oh, there's another class I forgot to add. That was default. That is default when it comes to doing navs in Bootstrap, which is this far. A nav expand large to actually show the whole thing. But let's see if that makes a difference. There you go. It makes a difference on my screen. So hopefully it makes a difference on yours. So Alex, I'm going to share this screen so everyone can see what it looks like on my end. There you go.
That looks great.
So as you see, guys, I did everything for the nav in one component, and I don't have to worry about it being different from any other page. Because now, anytime I want to do it, I can just literally just import it and just pass in the string. The open bracket, the open slot, I mean, I guess greater than, I don't remember. That navbar slash and then close it, and boom, that is my navigation bar. And that will always be the same across all my pages for the next time. Due to, sadly, of how we're running out of time, I'm actually going to leave this time period available for anyone to answer questions. I don't know if that's okay with you, Alex.
Yeah, we can if there's anything we need to touch up with the navbar, we can. But yeah, I definitely want to leave a little bit of time here for some questions. I know we went super long and we only created a navbar, but yeah, we wanted to make sure everyone understood the concepts that we're talking about and not just blow through it like we kind of did last time. However, if you want to keep going after this event is over, you can check out our GitHub. We already finished this page, complete with the navbar, the picture, the 2 event cards or 2 cards, and the footer. It's already completed on our GitHub. I'm actually about to pull it up real quick just so that you guys can see it.
Alex, I want to add something to that. So, guys, once you get that GitHub and you start playing around, and like if you run into any errors or if you don't understand something in the about page, you're like, oh, where's this tag coming from? Or I cannot find this, or any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to us on Discord, and all our tech leads, co-leads, we will be there to assist you, or we'll be there to answer your questions. Guys, please check out our Discord.
Yep, definitely 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly pull up our GitHub. Okay, so if you go to the link I just dropped in the chat, you can check out our GitHub. It'll take you to a page that looks kind of like this, with a very short intro of what this event series is and what the repo is for. But you go up here to select your branch. You can go down to session 2. And here is where session 2 React and JS is. And you can see literally all the files that you'll need except the node modules. You'll need to run npm install to install all of the node modules and the dependencies required for Bootstrap, since the Bootstrap dependencies are listed in the package.json, right?
Yeah.
And so if you what you can do is, if you're comfortable enough with Git, you can actually clone it, and you can go to code and you can copy it, and then you can run Git Clone in the command line and clone it. If you're not familiar with Git, I highly recommend you get comfy with it. It's super helpful, and it's not that complicated. You just need to know a few different commands, and after you practice them, it becomes second nature. Believe me, I forced myself to do it, and now it's super handy. But if you're not willing and not up for that learning curve right now, you can also download all these files as a zip. So if you click download as a zip, it'll download all the files for the fully functional working page that we are working on creating today. And then you can go ahead and open that up in VS Code and again, run npm install to install the dependencies and the node modules. And then you can start and then see what the page looks like. So I don't know if Antoine, I don't know if you have the project open from our completed page. If you want to go ahead and try to show what the completed page would look like if you continue doing what we've been working on.
No problem. Give me a second. Let me make this full screen so I can see. Oh, that's right. I didn't do the thing TJ added. Okay, everyone. So because I'm running it on the same port, I'm gonna, and because of the React router, so I'm just gonna do /about, and then it will actually render us to the page. And this will be how that one page is. And to even show you what I mean about this will always be the same no matter what page or what other components you decide to create. Oh wow, it was right there, it was hidden. As you can see, this page in particular, we didn't add the content in the, I guess, the meat of it. So we still have the same navbar. So it goes here, actually. Just click here. And then it kept the navbar and the footer to the same. And I don't have to worry about ever changing from, like, if this were two separate HTML pages, I will have to make sure both of them are the same. And if I change it on one page, I have to change it on the other. And sorry, TJ, you're about to ask a question?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay, that's my bad.
Yeah, I was just confused when I just saw the footer and the about page. I guess the link was like hidden inside there.
Yeah, I think it was a white text, so it was hidden until I hovered over it. And then just for a quick brief moment, not to go too in depth so you guys understand what I mean by like different pages and components, I'm just gonna go quickly over React router, because with React, as I mentioned before, React is a single page application. So literally just one HTML. So people will be wondering, how would I then change to different pages on my thing since there's only one page? So let me actually share my screen on the code base. Why is it not showing? Application window, there you go. All right, Alex, can you see?
Yes.
Perfect. So as you can see, the React is called React Router. Let me send the link to you guys so you can have that as a reference. And I actually met one of the main managers for React Router in Ireland, and she was a nice lady. Actually taught me a lot.
Oh, that's awesome.
And just to give a little shout out, everyone, if you see a web conference or a hackathon, take advantage, go for it. Network, meet people, learn stuff. In this field, you're always learning. So React Router actually has two different libraries called React DOM. Shout out to Alex because he actually taught me the difference, because the React DOM one is the actual production mode, while React Router is the regular one. And how we do it, we're kind of nesting everything in this thing called a browser router. However, I'm naming it differently as router. So the router is a way to nest your whole application into one single thing that is able to know, hey, I'm able to switch to all these different components. The switch is pretty much the switch statement of telling it where to switch to for certain things. So you always have a switch. So the router part, the browser router, needs to just be the upper one. That must be your highest level component wrapped around your whole class component to be able to work. After that, you can have switch in different components, and based off the URL, certain components will be rendered. And as you can see, I have it right here where the navbar will always get rendered, like what we just worked on. I have the footer to always be rendered. And the body of the pages is where it's nested under these routes. So routes, like here, if it's just a /1, it will render whatever component is in here. And since no component is just a link to this, it will link me to the about page, and the about page goes to this route. And with the about page, as you see, if it was like localhost / about, it will render this component, our app page component, which I can show you, which is this long, beautiful line of code, which has our containers, our little stuff for it when it comes to the cards from the two information on the bottom. The image itself, where's the image itself, and that one little row we have for our search button. And from there, like I said, I can, and that's where I'll be able to control the navigation and switch to different pages. I know that was a little short. Actually, if you are a UCF student in our club, I suggest reading on an article of resources that is available to us, such as LinkedIn Learning. And for people who are joining, there's a YouTuber called, what's his name? Web Dev Simplify and Traversy Media. That are the two YouTubers that I strongly recommend. I don't know if you have any recommendation as well, TJ?
Net Ninja, that's a pretty good channel too.
100% on Net Ninja. Yeah, Net Ninja has a really, really good. He has a React and Redux, but he just made a new refreshed playlist for React, which is where I learned most of my React knowledge, and I'm still just getting started. But he has a great series on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript just to get you started, among many other things.
Tajay, to answer your question, what are props for? So as you can see, we have an about page and we have some cards, right, Antoine? If you can show the card index.
So this is like a class component version of it, but just to show, go ahead, TJ.
So what I was saying is, the props are coming from the about page to inside this component. So that's how the about page component is talking to the card component. Right, Antoine? Did I get that right?
Correct. So as you can see, my card component is right here, this long.
In the about page.
So I pass a properties called title, which I don't even remember why I still have it. I think we fixed it up. No, I just had that there because force of habit from my old project. Where is it? Sorry. I just had it. Where's my about page? There it is. Yeah. So yeah, I passed it a property called title, left it an empty string, did a script, and I passed it this long string. Excuse me. This is just an object. However, because this is how you can actually reference resources. So I'm actually referencing the resource of our images from our resource page. And that is how I'm able to do it. So I literally have this, in reality, the resource of this long string of the image stored in a variable, and I'm able to pass it down. And then another property called button message, and I pass that down. So when it receives all this, it goes to my card, and that is where here so when it comes to the class one, not to go too much into it, but since we're doing function components, to use the function component props, I'm just going to type it right here. Before we had to do like this function navbar, just pass it, say the word props, and then from there you're able to get the properties for your React function component. In this case, is a class one. I kind of have to make a constructor and then use the super method, which is just the parent method, to initialize the prop variable. And then this is where we're doing the deconstructing. This is equivalent to this. So if I were to just uncomment this and leave it like that, and you say probably change that properly. Same exact thing. Just this time I'm just doing it all on one line. And then from there, I'm able to use those properties to this. Therefore, I'm able to have one component, be used for separate things. Because before, I would have to make 2 card components, like literally print out this twice in the old way of doing the HTML, and make sure to manage each resources as a thing. That is why we do it like this. And also, the reason why it's giving me this giant error and just yelling at me is because one component, if it's a one component, it needs to be nested. You cannot have any outer component. So as you can see, I have one card and everything else is nested. So no matter what you're rendering, everything has to be nested in one HTML HTML tag. A div, or what we call, this is a way of wrapping it, but not rendering anything in particular. This is called React Fragment. So there's 2 ways of doing this. React Fragment. And like I said, it's going to yell because this is me trying to return to HTML stuff when I'm only supposed to return 1. And like that, I can return one thing. So this will always return this without ever rendering a div. Like without me having to actually add another div to wrap everything. That's one way of doing it. So if I were to just say copy my card for some reason and have 2 of those, I'm still wrapping them in one thing. So that's one way of doing it. Another shortcut that I use for React Fragment is honestly leave it empty. Leaving like this and empty like this and then this. React and the JSX will know that you're doing a shorthand for React Fragment.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Tajay, like props are the way like the card component is talking to the about page and the about page is talking to card component. So Antoine, can you make some changes in the about page and show it again on the web browser to see how the changes will be made? I think that would be practically more visual.
Good point. Good example. Give me 1 second. Stop. Share screen. I'm on the right one, right? Yeah, perfect. Okay.
So right now we have in the description, we work with multiple organizations to coordinate the most impact, right? So if he makes a change in the about page, so the card component is going to listen to that and it's going to render the change that he made. So that's how from about page, we are talking to the card component and the card component is talking to the about page.
All right, it should re-render now.
Yeah, it is.
Hello, everyone.
So that's on a high level perspective, that's props, Tajil, but there's more to it. Like React kind of lives on props. So because once you have a web app, you want components to be talking to each other. Sometimes you don't want components to be talking to each other. So it goes into a whole different paradigm, like architecture, and developers usually come together and talk about this stuff. But to give you a high level perspective, that's how components talk to each other. I hope you got that.
Additionally, when it comes to the properties, I actually don't even have to pass strings only. I can pass, just like the data types we have for JavaScript, I can pass it whatever I like. I can pass it a function. I can pass it an object, pass it a string. I can pass it a Boolean. The thing is like whatever you need it to pass, this is where the reusability is. Instead of me having to copy that thing twice, I only have to make it once, and I just call it twice by calling my React component called cards, and just pass it the properties I need. Instead of having to worry about, hey, is this one symmetrical, similar to the one to the right? I can just do that all in one place and call it a day.
And you can export it to other projects as well and save a lot of time. So once you do a project in React, you have already built several reusable components like sign-in page, sign-up page, about page, and you can just export them and change your stuff. Saves a lot of time, guys.
All right, I think we have reached the end of the content for today. So again, we only built the nav and footer, or just the nav, but to build the whole page, you can follow along with our code on our GitHub. We're using the same exact techniques that we went over today. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit us up on Discord. Again, all you got to do is go to our website, which is dscucf.com, and then click the Discord button, which will let you join our Discord server. And you can hit us up in any channel. You can tag the tech leads, just at tech leads. Or you can feel free to drop any of your questions in the event chat channel or general or whatever channel you want. We'll be checking out both of those channels and just keeping up to date to see if anyone has any questions or needs any assistance. We'd be happy to help. But for now, I want to thank everyone for coming today and learning some React with us. Thank you, TJ and Antoine. You guys did an awesome job presenting React and getting everyone started on their journey of learning React. So for me, again, thank you for coming, everyone. I'll go ahead and let TJ and Antoine go ahead and sign off.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, guys.
And thank you again for everyone. Thank you for those who joined us again. And as also to just reiterate, if you guys have any questions, don't feel scared to like message me or TJ or anyone on the web team. We'll be happy to help.
Yes, very well.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for attending. Stay tuned for updates on our upcoming sessions, and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.